In the busy city of Edo, a boy named Jide and a girl named Iheme were in love for a long time. Iheme was known for her beautiful curves and Jide loved that about her. But one day, their love ended and something terrible happened. Jide and Iheme were very close. They met in school, shared dreams and talked about the future. They loved playing together in the school playground and eating snacks during lunch. Jide always shared his cookies with Iheme, and Iheme always gave Jide her fruit. Jide adored Ife's curves. He loved how she looked in her pretty dresses that hugged her figure. She was not just beautiful, she was also kind and funny. Everyone noticed how much Jide liked Iheme. They would often see him smiling whenever she was around. Every day after school, Jide and Iheme would walk home together. They talked about everything, their favorite cartoons, what they wanted to be when they grew up, and the games they played with their friends. They were best friends before they became boyfriend and girlfriend. But as time went on, things started to change. Jide wanted to spend more time with his friends playing soccer, and Iheme felt lonely. She missed the times they spent together. Sometimes Iheme would cry when she was alone in her room. One day, Iheme saw Jide talking to another girl. She felt very jealous and thought Jide didn't care about her anymore. Jide explained that the girl asked about homework, but Iheme didn't believe him. Their arguments became more frequent. Iheme would get angry quickly, and Jide would get frustrated. They started to drift apart, and soon they decided to break up. Iheme was very sad and angry. She felt like her heart was broken into pieces. Months passed, and Jide missed Iheme. He remembered their good times together and wanted to be friends again. He thought about calling Iheme and inviting her over to talk. They could fix their friendship. Jide called Iheme one afternoon. "Hello, Iheme. It's Jide," he said nervously. "I was wondering if you could come to my house and cook for me. I miss your cooking and I think we should talk." Iheme was surprised to hear from Jide. She had been feeling lonely too, but she was still very angry. However, she agreed to go, thinking it might be a chance to discuss things. Deep inside, she still felt a lot of pain and anger. As Iheme prepared to go to Jide's house, she couldn't stop thinking about how hurt she felt. She wanted to make Jide feel the same pain. An idea came to her mind, a terrible idea. She decided she would poison the food she cooked for him. She thought that making him sick would make her feel better. Iheme went to the market and bought all the ingredients she needed. She also bought a small bottle of poison. She felt scared but determined. She wanted Jide to pay for breaking her heart. When she arrived at Jide's house, he greeted her with a smile. "Thank you for coming, Iheme. I appreciate it," he said. Iheme looked beautiful in her dress, which showed off her curves. Jide couldn't help but admire her as she walked into the kitchen. He thought, "How could I have let her go?" "Let's start cooking," Iheme said, trying to hide her true feelings. Iheme and Jide went into the kitchen. Iheme started to prepare a delicious meal. She chopped vegetables, marinated the meat, and started to cook. Jide watched her, feeling happy that she was there. While Jide was not looking, Iheme poured the poison into the pot. Her hands were shaking, but she kept going. She mixed the food well to make sure the poison was spread evenly. Just as they were about to sit down and eat, Jide's best friend, Emeka, came to visit. "Hey, Jide. I was in the neighborhood and thought I could drop by," Emeka chirped. Jide smiled and invited Emeka to join them for dinner. "Come and eat with us, Emeka." "Iheme made a wonderful meal," he said. They all sat down to eat. Iheme watched nervously as Jide and Emeka took their first bites. At first, everything seemed fine. They talked and laughed, but soon, Jide and Emeka started to feel sick. Jide clutched his stomach. "Iheme, I don't feel so good," he said weakly. Emeka was also feeling very sick. They both fell to the ground, groaning in pain. Within minutes, they were both unconscious. Iheme panicked. She expected things to happen slowly. She tried to leave the house, but the neighbors heard the commotion and stopped her. They called the police, and Iheme was arrested. Iheme was taken to jail. She was very scared and sad. She didn't know what would happen to her. In jail, many people noticed Iheme because she was beautiful and had a curvy shape. The male prisoners and even some of the guards liked her and wanted to be close to her. Iheme became the talk of the prison. Everyone whispered about her curves, and many prisoners fought over her attention. Some said, "Have you seen Iheme? She's so beautiful." It was as if her curves had a magical power that drew everyone in. This caused a lot of fights and problems in the jail. Iheme's first day in jail was terrifying. The gates closed behind her with a loud bang, and the guards led her to a small, cold cell. She sat on the hard bed and cried, wishing she could turn back time. She missed her family and felt very alone. The other prisoners stared at her as she walked by. They whispered and pointed, making Iheme feel even more scared. She didn't know what to expect and felt like she didn't belong there. The next day, Iheme was introduced to the other women in her cell block. There was Ada, who was in jail for stealing, and Ngozi, who had been caught selling illegal items. They seemed harsh, but Iheme hoped they might be friendly. "Hi, I'm Iheme," she said quietly. Ada looked at her and nodded. "I'm Ada." "Don't worry, you'll get used to this place," she said. Ngozi added, "Just stay out of trouble, and you'll be fine." Iheme tried to stay hopeful but still felt scared and alone. Life in jail had a strict routine. Iheme had to wake up early every morning, make her bed neatly, and stand in line for breakfast. The food could have been better, and Iheme missed the meals she used to cook at home. After breakfast, Iheme had to do chores. She helped clean the floors and wash the dishes. It was hard work, but it kept her busy. Sometimes, she was allowed to go outside for a short time to get some fresh air. In the afternoon, Iheme attended classes. She learned how to sew and cook, which were meant to help her when she left jail. Iheme enjoyed these classes because they gave her something to focus on and helped her forget her troubles for a little while. Iheme's looks attracted a lot of attention from the male prisoners and even some of the guards. They would watch her and make comments that made Iheme feel uncomfortable. One day, a guard named Mr. Okoro approached her. "Hello, Iheme. You are lovely. If you ever need anything, just let me know," he said with a smile that made Iheme uneasy. Iheme nodded politely but felt very nervous. She didn't want any trouble, but she knew that it was hard to avoid in jail. The attention from the male prisoners led to many fights. They would argue and sometimes even physically fight over who got to talk to Iheme or who could sit next to her during meals. Iheme felt like a prize being fought over, making her very sad. One day, two prisoners, Tunde and Kola, got into a big fight over Iheme. They shouted and pushed each other until the guards had to break it up. "Stop it. Both of you," shouted a guard as he pulled them apart. "This is a jail, not a playground." Iheme watched in horror, feeling guilty that her presence was causing so much trouble. Despite the problems, Iheme managed to make a few friends. There was Mary, who always had a kind word, and Fatima, who was very smart and helped Iheme with her sewing projects. One evening, things took a severe turn. Tunde and Kola had been fighting more often over Iheme. Their jealousy and anger had grown so intense that it was clear something terrible would happen. Iheme could feel the tension in the air, making her very nervous. Walking through the prison yard, she overheard a conversation between Tunde and Kola. Tunde was shouting, "I love Iheme. Do you think you can take her from me?" "I won't let you." Kola replied angrily, "Iheme doesn't belong to you. I will make her mine, even if I must fight for it." Iheme wanted to tell them to stop, that she wasn't worth fighting over. But every time she tried to speak, they wouldn't listen. Instead, they became more obsessed with her. One fateful afternoon, things escalated. Tunde and Kola were supposed to attend a group activity together, but instead they met in a secluded part of the yard. Iheme was returning from her sewing class when she saw them arguing again. "Why do you care so much about her? She's just a pretty face." Kola shouted, his face red with anger. Tunde shouted back, "No, she's more than that. She makes me feel alive. If you touch her, I'll kill you." Before Iheme could intervene, Kola lunged at Tunde and they started to fight. It was chaotic. They rolled on the ground, throwing punches and kicking each other. Iheme's heart raced as she watched, frozen in fear. Suddenly, one of the guards came running to break up the fight, but it was too late. In the heat of the moment, Tunde grabbed a metal pipe lying on the ground and struck Kola in the head. Kola fell to the ground, not moving. Tunde stood there, breathing heavily, his eyes wide with shock. The guards quickly intervened, but Kola was taken to the infirmary. Unfortunately, despite their best efforts, Kola succumbed to his injuries. The news of his death spread quickly throughout the prison. Everyone was shocked. Tunde was immediately placed in solitary confinement, and Iheme felt terrible. She had never wanted any of this to happen. She sat alone in her cell, crying. The other prisoners whispered, "It's all Iheme's fault. She's the reason for Kola's death." Everywhere she went, Iheme felt the weight of guilt and sorrow. She wished she could change everything, that she could have stopped the fight. As days passed, the prison became quiet. Kola's death affected everyone. Some prisoners mourned, while others were angry. Iheme felt isolated. The whispers continued, and she couldn't escape the stares of the other inmates. In her heart, Iheme knew she never wanted to be the cause of anyone's pain. Her curves, which had once made her feel beautiful and unique, now felt like a curse. The attention they drew had turned deadly, and Iheme felt trapped in a nightmare. One night, she overheard some prisoners talking about Tunde. "He's been acting weird ever since Kola died. He keeps saying he wishes he had died instead," one prisoner said. Another replied, "I heard he's going to take his own life. He can't handle the guilt." Iheme's heart sank. She couldn't believe that the situation had escalated so much. Her beauty and the love that came with it had caused so much chaos and heartache. A week later, the prison was shaken by another tragedy. Tunde, unable to cope with the guilt of what he had done, ended his own life in solitary confinement. He had written a note that said, "I am sorry for everything. I couldn't live with what I did. Iheme, forgive me." When Iheme heard the news, she was devastated. She felt like the walls of the prison were closing in on her. The loss of both Tunde and Kola weighed heavily on her heart. The guilt consumed her, and she wondered if she would ever be free of the shadows of her past actions. In the days following the tragedies, Iheme struggled to find hope. The other prisoners avoided her, and she felt utterly alone. But then she remembered the warden's words about changing her life. Iheme decided that she needed to focus on her future and honor the memory of those who had lost their lives because of her actions. She started attending group therapy sessions in jail, where she learned to talk about her feelings. She shared her story and the pain she carried. Slowly, she began to heal, realizing that she needed to forgive herself to move on. As Iheme worked on herself, she also tried to help others in prison. She taught sewing classes, encouraging other women to express their emotions through art. She told them about the importance of choices and how every action has consequences.